All right, I want to read another email that I received from one of my longtime listeners who has decided to dump me because of a video I posted up as well that says that the Revolutionary War gives legitimacy to the Confederate flag. And I want to read his email and then I'll have some comments of what he has said. And it says, and I'll just call him Brother N, or KN, and say, "Good afternoon, Pastor Manning. I hope all is well with you, Elizabeth, and the ATLAH congregation. Pastor Manning, I've tried to give you the benefit of the doubt. As I mentioned to you, Pastor, I turned a blind eye to your past because of your denouncement of Trump. However, after watching and listening to your last Manning Report commentary, don't let them run me out of Harlem. I can no longer morally support you anymore, Pastor. Reason being is that you, Pastor, stated an inaccurate and false truth in the opening remarks of your commentary. Pastor, I agree with you 100%. Black Lives Matter is a radical movement that needs to be shut down and eradicated. But you yourself, Pastor, have no moral conviction or moral right to put down, number one, evil to make another evil look as though it's better than the evil that you're denouncing. What do you mean he talks of himself, Keith? What the hell are you trying to say, Keith? That's a good question, Pastor. Let me explain. Pastor, you stated today in the 2020 historians have only documented throughout Jim Crow to present time and date only 31 lynchings of black people in America. 31? Only 31? Are you serious, Pastor? You yourself, Pastor, can tell the world the numbers of crimes, stats of black on black crimes in Chicago and from other metropolitan cities in America, but you yourself, Pastor, can't tell the world the truth and facts about the thousands of blacks who were killed and murdered in America, Jim Crow era, even present time today because of lynchings. In my eyes now, Pastor, you are a disgrace. Have a nice day, Pastor. Well, okay, so your problem, if I'm correct here, Keith, is that you're stating that the number 31 was not appropriate. And so as a result of that, of my miscalculating, your statement of my miscalculating the number of people, black men that have been lynched, is all of a sudden makes me a disgraceful person. And it now closes down a long number of years of relationship that you and I have had as you have been follower and listener and supporter of what we've done. So because of that one statement, you've now ticked off. And by the way, you made no reference to the fact that the high-tech lynching, to quote Clarence Thomas, Keith, you made no mention of the high-tech lynching that is happening to me right here in Harlem, and you know it. I think you live in Harlem too, by the way, Keith. You made no mention of the high-tech lynching of the sodomites LGBT crowd trying to take our church, run me out of town. They bought off and paid other pastors to preach in their pulpits against me. They paid off the school boards and others and the politicians to march against me. That's a high-tech lynching that they're trying to do to me. You made no mention of concern for the high-tech lynching of the good Dr. James David Manning. You made no mention of that. However, if you think, Keith, and I'll give you some limit to be wrong on this matter, that there were more than 31 lynchings over the period of the number of documented lynchings that took place from slavery, the antebellum period, to Jim Crow, to present. And I made that 31 lynching comparison to the number of shootings that have happened in the last, 40, 50 years by police officers against young black men. That they have been more numerous. The shootings have been more numerous, and that the shootings that just in Chicago alone on Father's Day, 14 people were killed. And I made the comparison to 14 people killed in one day in Chicago, and over 3,900 killed in 8 years in Chicago, compared to the 31 documented lynchings. And that's what I have. If I'm wrong, by the way, Keith, if I'm wrong, if there have been more lynchings, documented lynchings. Oh, I know, Keith, there have been numerous and thousands of murders, of rapes, of brutal beatings, of imprisonment, of false imprisonment, And, I've seen people judicially lynched, by the way, in Rayford Prison and other prisons around America back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s when the black man was sent to prison for 100 years. That's a judicial lynching. And oftentimes he was innocent. I've tried to express that I understand that clearly. However, my research may have led me, my research on actual documented, where it absolutely documented that the Klan lynched a black man, led me to only 31. Now, were there more than 31 lynchings? Yes, but I'm talking those that have been documented. Now, if you have other proof of more documented lynchings, I'm not talking about killings or rapings or judicial lynchings or high-tech lynchings of black people, and yeah, there have been numerous, no doubt about it. There have been numerous. Thousands they have been. Tens of thousands they've been. Don't start me talking about the number of people that died in the Middle Passage on those boats, suffocated in their own feces on the Middle Passage boat from the west coast of Africa to Jamestown. Don't get me started about those deaths as well. Then the calculus goes off the rails. But Keith, all I have is, I'm talking about that which has been documented. Show me more and I'll agree with you. But if you choose to no longer align yourself with me, I'm cool with that. I'm good. I don't think that you're going to do that. I think that you've learned too much from me. And I think you're just, can I read a second note that you wrote to me also that I think is also giving you a little bit of little tension, the reason why you want to stick it to me, the reason why you want me to back up a little bit, because I'm coming down a road that you think that perhaps is a bit painful, and you're using the lynch, and you know better, because you know I know better. But let me read a second, because after you wrote this one, you wrote this email on June 30th, which was yesterday, at 9 o'clock in the evening. You then came back the same day, 55 minutes later, and you wrote this: my last and final words, Pastor, and I promise not to bother you anymore. No, don't say it like that, James. Keith said, say I promise not to inflict myself upon you any further. He said, I've observed from watching and listening to your latest Manning Report commentary, it seems to me, Pastor, that you're appeasing a certain demographic audience with your rhetoric. Your pastor history lessons about the Civil War, the American Revolutionary War, the Confederate flag sounds hot, jiggy, and fly. But my question for you, Pastor, is what is your true ulterior motive for your rhetoric? You yourself, Pastor, often profess that you are a person of righteousness and that you will preach righteousness. Case in point, you, Pastor, in some ways remind me of that clown, Jesse Lee Peterson. Oh, God, please. No, I don't. Of the West Coast. Both of you have no problem whatsoever to condemn and rebuke black people to the world with absolutely having no guilt or remorse for doing so. Most of all, having no fear whatsoever of facing any consequence or ramifications for condoning black people. Keith, here is a major problem. I can't speak for Jesse Lee Peterson, but I can tell you, I can speak for James David Manning. You are incapable of understanding what's wrong with the black man, why he has failed so miserably. Truman dropped an atomic bomb on the Japanese twice, and yet they've been able to bounce back and build Lexus automobiles and Sony and Panasonics. The Jews were persecuted, robbed and raped and left for dead, and thousands of them, if not millions of them, burned in ovens, and yet they've been able to bounce back and restructure themselves and reconquer their land. The people of India, the Muslims and the Buddhists were able to throw off the English colonization of after 150 years of slavery by the European, the Great Brits over India, and that they've been able to spring back and reconquer themselves and build Taj Mahal. Black people not been able to do that, and I know why. And Keith, when I say the things I say, I don't say them with hatred of this somehow or another. I'm a white man cursing out black people. I'm trying to wake the brother up. Listen, Black people have given up Harlem and become sodomites. Black preachers have actually turned around, grabbed both ankles, and are now telling young black boys who don't know sexual, that haven't gone through puberty, that to bend over and let another man insert his penis in his butt and to kiss each other. Do you understand why? I'm trying to show him how wrong he has gone. And with respect to the Confederate flag, historically, Keith, if the Revolutionary War was a legitimate war, and it was, the American settlers and pilgrims fought to stop King George from colonizing and enslaving them from across the ocean. It was a legitimate war. And everybody praises the American flag for having separated itself from the Union, from the Great British flag and government. The Civil War was about a group of states who had the right constitutionally to secede from the Union and to set up their own government. It was not a movement of treason, and they had every right. And if the Revolution and the American Revolution was a legitimate movement, then the Confederates organization of Confederate States was a legitimate movement as well. Now they lost, but it doesn't make it illegitimate. But even if if you think that it was, you can't erase history. And we need to leave the monuments of history as vile as some of them are. Not all things in history is well-pleasing. You can't just pick and choose the things that you like about history and say, we'll keep these things in history, but the things that we don't like about history, we'll then remove them, such as the Confederate flag and the Confederate statues. Because ultimately, you're going to have to remove George Washington. You know, he was a slave owner. You're going to have to remove Thomas Jefferson. You know, he was a slave owner as well. So where does it stop? Where does it stop? I will say this, I'm glad that my Japheth brother does listen to me, because you Hamite brothers, you are pretty much, as the old saying, that the elevator doesn't go to the top. There's something wrong with the black man. I know what it is. But you're not all there. You're at the bottom, you black man, you're at the bottom of the social register. Nobody has failed in world development the way the black man had. Nobody. He had Harlem and he gave that away to the sodomites. Nobody has failed. You're at the bottom of the social register, and you can't tell me that you're not. Even after having a black president, you are still at the bottom of the social register. There's something wrong. There is something fundamentally wrong. And I'm touching it. I'm preaching it. I'm addressing it. I'm not sweeping over it. I'm not trying to put a Band-Aid on metastasized cancer of the greatest magnitude. And that's all that black people do all day long, from the NAACP to black president to black mayors and they're putting a Band-Aid on metastasized cancer. Something's wrong. There needs to be surgery. There needs to be a treatment, and I'm the Dr. Manning to bring that treatment. And I don't think you really want to completely dump me. I think probably what's happening is that you're a little upset that I'm speaking the truth, because the truth hurts. It always does. It always does. Being set free hurts. Being set free is a very painful experience. This is a bit of a news blog we do, looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting, rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report, will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.